How do you craft a story so compelling that readers finish it and immediately tell their friends, you have to read this book? Well, that's a really big question. But one thing is certain, you need a strong story structure. And that's exactly where Save the Cat comes in. This week, we are tackling Act 3, the final act of the Save the Cat story structure framework. I'll break down how to craft a climactic, unforgettable ending, one that surprises readers, leaves them deeply satisfied, and makes them eager to tell their friends about your novel and grab your next one too. Hello and welcome to the Speculative Fiction Writing Made Simple podcast. I'm your host, Heather Davis. I'm a book coach, developmental editor, and fellow storyteller. And this is the show that's all about how to brainstorm, write, edit, publish, and sell a powerful speculative fiction novel, and maybe just change the world too. Back in episode 29, we took a deep dive into Act 1 of Save the Cat, covering exactly how to craft a compelling opening of a novel that hooks readers, establishes stakes, and introduces your protagonist's misbelief. Then, in episode 31, we tackled Act 2, breaking down exactly how to navigate the tricky middle of your novel. Because let's face it, without a solid structure, that middle section can easily slump, sag, and lose momentum. So if you haven't listened to those episodes yet, please hit pause and go check them out first. Once you're all caught up, you can come back here and we'll dive into the final piece of the puzzle. Still here? Great. That means you've got a solid understanding of Act 1, Act 2, and you're pretty familiar with my example movie, which is Up by Pixar. Last time, we left off with the dark night of the soul, which means today we're picking up with the break into 3, the moment when your protagonist boldly steps into the final act of the novel. So what is the break into 3 anyway? Well, the break into 3 is a single scene beat where everything sort of clicks for your protagonist. Armed with the insight from their dark night epiphany, the protagonist experiences a moment of clarity. They now understand the point of the novel and they are ready to act, not with hesitation like before, but with a new sense of purpose. This is the beat where they say, "Huzzah! I know what I have to do to fix all my problems, and maybe to fix myself too." Their goal at this stage may be the same one they had throughout Act 2, only now they approach it differently, with a deeper understanding. Or it might be a completely new goal, one that better aligns with their newfound growth. It all depends on your story and the transformation you want to show. Regardless, the break into 3 is where their new goal solidifies, their plan takes shape, and they commit to a decisive course of action to achieve that goal. Sometimes they even take their first step toward putting their plan into action, which is exactly what we'll see in my example. In my example from Up, during the Dark Night Epiphany, Carl reads Ellie's note on the last page of her adventure book. She says, "Thanks for the adventure. Now go have a new one." And he realizes that Ellie's adventure wasn't about Paradise Falls. It was about their life together. A second later, the break into 3 begins. He glances over at Ellie's empty chair and he sees Russell's merit badge sash. He picks it up, and in that moment, we see that he has made the decision that his relationship with Russell is that new adventure and that he is ready to commit to it. But when Carl steps outside to find Russell, he sees him floating away, strapped to a bunch of balloons and holding a leaf blower. The little boy is clearly determined to go rescue Kevin. Having learned the point of the story, Carl knows he can't let Russell face months alone. He immediately takes action. If the house is going to float again so he can go after Russell, it needs to be much lighter. Without hesitation, he starts tossing out furniture and cherished possessions, things he's clung to for so long. This symbolic act of letting go not only allows the house to rise, but also marks the moment that Carl fully embraces the future instead of being weighed down by the past. And, of course, it marks the moment when Carl puts his plan into action to achieve his Act 3 goal. Okay, we have finally arrived at the finale. The finale is a multi scene beat and the climactic all or nothing moment of your novel. This is where the protagonist fully puts their plan into action and proves to themselves and to the reader that they have truly transformed. They are not the same person they were when this story began. They can't go back to their old flawed way of thinking. Instead, they demonstrate their growth through action, showing that the lessons they've learned are now guiding them. But here's the thing, the finale shouldn't be quick or easy. The protagonist must work for their victory. They must face obstacles and setbacks that keep readers on the edge of their seats, wondering, are they going to succeed or fail? After all, this is the moment in the story when the protagonist does things like storming the castle to save the prince, or racing through rush hour traffic to stop their love from getting on that plane. And to make sure the reader gets the roller coaster ride they expect, you'll want to follow the 5-point finale formula. What is the 5-point finale formula? Well, it's pretty simple. It's literally just 5 points that you want to try to hit in your finale to make absolutely sure that the reader does feel that roller coaster of up and down that will keep them on the edge of their seat. Okay, point 1 is gather the team. Before your protagonist can act, they must assemble their allies, tools, or resources. If they don't have a literal team, this might be gathering weapons, collecting key information, or mentally preparing for what's ahead. Point 2, they must execute the plan. This is exactly what it sounds like. The protagonist takes action and puts their plan into motion. But of course, nothing ever goes exactly as expected, so point number 3 comes along, the high tower surprise. This is where the story throws one last curveball, a final unexpected twist that threatens to ruin everything. Think of it as the last time the reader will think, are they really going to fail after making it this far? Maybe an enemy was one step ahead and sabotages their plan. Maybe the person they were counting on betrays them. Maybe they arrive too late and it looks like all hope is lost. Whatever happens here, this is the moment that shakes everything up and makes the protagonist question whether it's truly possible to succeed. And so we get to point number 4. Your protagonist must dig deep down. Now they have a choice, give up or push forward. This is the moment when the protagonist reassesses, reflects, and finds a strength or a wisdom they never knew they had. They've truly changed, and now they have to prove it by making a choice that shows they've learned the point of the novel. This realization leads them to a new way forward, a plan, a choice, one that they wouldn't have seen before, one that they wouldn't have been able to make at the beginning of the novel. Which leads us, of course, to point 5. Execute the new plan. Armed with this newfound strength and clarity, the protagonist takes action one last time. And this time, they win. They achieve their Act 3 goal. Not because of brute force or luck. They succeed because they have changed. Their transformation is what makes this victory possible. Huzzah! The journey is complete. The story delivers the emotional payoff readers have been waiting for. Whew, right? That was a wild ride of a finale. Okay, now let's take a look at my example from Up. First comes point 1, gather the team. Carl, now fully stepping into his role as hero and protector, gathers his team to go rescue Russell. He takes Doug the dog and Kevin the bird for one final daring showdown against Muntz. Point number 2, execute the plan. Carl storms the metaphorical castle, Muntz's massive flying dirigible. At first, things go surprisingly well. He saves Russell from falling to his death. He navigates the ship's dangerous interior. He outwits Muntz's pack of dogs. And he frees Kevin from her cage, and they race toward the floating house to escape. It looks like victory is within reach. But then comes point 3, the high tower surprise, where everything goes wrong. Just as Russell, Doug, and Kevin get into the house so they can all fly away, Muntz appears on the dirigible above them, shooting at the house's balloons one by one. The house loses lift, crashing into the sloping edge of the dirigible. It begins to slide off, and Russell, Doug, and Kevin are about to go down with it. Panicked, Carl grabs onto the hose attached to the side of the house, desperately trying to keep the house from falling, but it's too heavy, and he is faced with his ultimate test. Which, of course, means point 4 comes along. Carl must dig deep down. This is Carl's defining moment. To save his newfound family, he can't worry about saving the house. He must finally let go of his past for good. He must completely let go of any hope of getting the house to Paradise Falls and instead figure out how to get Russell, Doug, and Kevin out of the house before it falls. To do this, Carl needs a new plan, so along comes point number 5, execute the new plan. Thinking fast, Carl remembers the chocolate bar still in his pocket, which just so happens to be Kevin's favorite food, a food she'll do anything for. So he calls out for Russell to hold on to Kevin, and he dangles the chocolate where she can see it, telling her to come get it. Kevin, of course, lunges for the treat, dragging Russell and Doug out of harm's way just as the house slips and falls. And just like that, Carl has let go of the house, which represents his past. He's done it both literally and figuratively. Wow, my friends, we have made it to the very last beat in the novel, called the final image. The final image is the mirror to the opening image, a bookend that highlights just how much the protagonist, and often their world, has changed. It's the emotional exhale after the climactic action, giving the audience a moment to reflect on the journey and feel that satisfying sense of closure. If the opening image showed what was missing, broken, or unfulfilled in the protagonist's life, then the final image reveals what has been gained, healed, and transformed. It's a visual and emotional snapshot that encapsulates their internal and external growth, tying the story together in a way that feels both earned and deeply satisfying. All right, let's look at my last example from Up. In the opening image, Carl was a lonely widower clinging to the past and isolated in his house, surrounded by memories of his dead wife, Ellie. By the final image, he's let go of his house and his old dream, and he's embracing a new purpose and a new connection. He attends Russell's Wilderness Explorer ceremony, where Russell is supposed to receive his Assisting the Elderly badge. But when Russell's father doesn't show up to pin it on the little boy's sash, Carl steps up instead, showing that these two are now family. After the ceremony, Carl and Russell sit together on a curb, sharing an ice cream, a quiet, heartwarming nod to the relationship Russell once longed for with his absent father. This simple but powerful moment encapsulates Carl's profound transformation. He has gone from a man who was stuck in the past to one who has embraced the adventure of life once more, one filled with connection, love, and new adventures. Okay, my friends, that's it for today. I hope this episode was super helpful to you. If you're interested in getting the workbook, I'll put the link to the Act 3 workbook right in the show notes. I'll also include a link to the full workbook, which will include Acts 1, 2, and 3. You'll find that in the show notes too. And, of course, if you haven't done so already, please take a moment to tell a friend about this podcast. It would help the show grow, and it would help me help more writers. Until next time, keep writing, keep dreaming, and remember, the world needs your stories right now, so don't you dare give up on your novel or yourself. Talk soon.